Hi again, everybody. I'm Jamie Allison, and this is the Big Idea, Big Moves podcast. It's the destination for high performers. We talk to people from different genres, different niches, different areas of focus to find out some of the things that they're doing in their lives that hopefully we can translate into ours. We talk to CEOs, we talk to lots of athletes, we talk to scientists, and just people that are really making big moves in their space. And I know we have one of those people today, which we're going to jump into that in just a second. A couple of quick things. If you're like a lot of our guests and also ourselves, is that it's sometimes trying to find the right way to kind of write down our goals and journaling and all those fun things as well. And I think that we've really found a really good tool for that. It's called Gym Gypsy. And you'll notice that it has, it's filled with tools, filled with space to be able to track everything from your own nutrition and strength and skills work and your own PRs and all those things for the gym, but also a little bit about why you're doing those things and some of the more kind of root cause stuff. So I think it's a tool that everyone will be able to enjoy. Definitely take a look at it on our Instagram. You can find it there if you go into our bio, and you'll see that there's a link through there. So check it out. Again, it's Gym Gypsy, and you can find them on the web themselves at gym-gypsy.com. So definitely take a look at them. While you're there as well, you'll see that we have a newsletter that you can sign up for, and we have a lot of cool stuff, whether it's discounts or just inside information or some of those things when we have guests coming up that you'll hear about it before anybody else. So sign up for that when you're there as well. So today's guest, she is, so it's Renee Pickett. She's a certified AFAA personal trainer. She's a health and fitness speaker. She's been a Spartan World Championship athlete as well. After starting her career in the really high growth industry as a Zumba trainer, which we'll hear a little bit about, she's also been involved in their Strong Nation program as a master trainer. As a way to kind of also push herself out of her own comfort zone, she turned to obstacle racing and has done lots of cool stuff there. She's an active fitness influencer, a fitness model, and most importantly, and I know we've even talked about this just before the show, is she's a mom as well, and an active mom. So busy life, Renee. So just first of all, thank you for taking the time out to talk to us today.
Thanks for having me. Thank you so much. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, well, you've got a lot of accomplishments when we kind of go through that as from an athlete standpoint and some of those things. But maybe you can walk us through a little bit, because I know that you've had a bit of a different kind of journey to get here. So why don't you work us back a little bit and have you always been an athlete? And maybe I'll ask first, and then if you have, how did you evolve into kind of what you're doing today?
So yes and no. I mean, growing up, my family was very, very active. My mom was always pushing me to just stay moving. My mom, back in the 80s, used to be a modern jazz instructor.
Mm-hmm.
So she was always moving. Movement's a part of my life. My family's always stuck us in gymnastics, jazz, tap, ballet, soccer, anything that, could just keep us busy and keep me motivated. I don't know, my family just always kind of pushed us towards idle time was always frowned upon in my family. It was just a way for you to get into trouble. So I did gymnastics and jazz, tap, ballet, and then I kind of just got away from that. And I found soccer, which that was really my passion. Like that was my love. However, just genetics. I was born with dislocated hips, and my knees developed improperly. So I had 3 knee surgeries all before 17. So that kind of set me back from pursuing my career with soccer. And then, just life got in the way. We relocated to a small town that back in, I guess that was like in the 90s. Now that I think about it, and it sounds so long ago now. But there was not a female soccer team, and it was just crushing, because that was like my life's goal, was to be on the US women's team. So I just kind of fell away from that, and actually fell into a little bit of trouble, as a teen. And was homeschooled for a few years, got my life back on track, entered back into public school, really never found my way back to athletics. I got married right out of high school. My husband and I, we were super lucky in that aspect. I wouldn't recommend that. 10 out of 10 would say, just follow your own path. But I actually, found fitness after our second son was born. I just gained weight. And so for me, that was the first time really just being like, wow, I actually have to figure out a way to get this off. I don't feel like myself. And so joined a gym, and thanks to my husband. And that really kind of opened up everything for me. I didn't even realize it. I just started going. And one day I got invited to a Zumba class. And I was like, what is a Zumba class? So I actually went and felt like the biggest fool ever, vowed to never return, vowed to never return.
Really?
I couldn't believe that I let people see me do that, But 2 weeks later, my pride had healed. My husband was like, I know you want to go back in there, just do it. No one's looking at you. And so I actually went back in there and was like, hey, I remember a few things. And then I kind of stuck with that for a while. And that was kind of, in my opinion, like that was my introduction. That wasn't my intro to the fitness industry. And I didn't even realize it. Got suckered into becoming an instructor. And then that just kind of, from there on out, I never left the fitness industry. So.
Yeah, well, and you've been an instructor, but you also have really kind of done a lot of things through that program. How has that been, I guess, knowing that, you started out as just being a complete rookie to the program, and then you have been one of the leading faces of that movement. So that's kind of cool. Like, how did that feel, I guess, going through that experience?
In the beginning, it's always funny because I think none of us realize the moments that are actually seem super insignificant. They really end up being really big moments in your life. If you look back and you're like, wow, if I never would have done that, I would never be where I am now. So with Zumba, I rocked the Zumba world. Like I did that really hard for several years. At first it was just like, okay, I literally only became a Zumba instructor so that I could get a free membership. Seriously. And as a stay-at-home mom, my kids are 20 months apart. I have 2 boys, and they were very, very small. And I just was like, okay, this is my way to get out of the house and also get a free gym membership. And, it was a win-win, and make a little bit of money on the side. And then like my classes just started getting bigger. And then my husband was like, hey, you should go try to teach another class this other place.
Yeah.
So I did that. And then that class grew. And then, it went to 120 people and back-to-back classes. And then I was teaching 10 classes a week at one time.
Wow.
And yeah. Wow. I don't know.
That's a
I
lot.
definitely could not do that now. This 37-year-old body could not do that now. But I really loved it. And then in my opinion, so I ended up I always say I got suckered into it. I got suckered into applying for a position. I would just choreograph stuff for classes and give it to other instructors. And then someone was like, hey, we've got a program coming out where you actually can get hired by a corporate office. You can become a choreographer for them. And so I did that. I really didn't think anything would come of it. But then I realized that's kind of where I realized, okay, I really love teaching people. Like I really love not just the dance fitness side. I really like teaching instructors how to be a better instructor. And so that was kind of my intro into being an educator. Yeah. Then I got hired as an educator for them. I became a Zumba education specialist in, I think, 2011. And that's where I started licensing people to teach the program. Mm-hmm. I did that for several years. I taught classes. I had 9 states I was traveling to on the weekends to certify or license people. And then I burnt myself out. Like, honestly, I did not take enough time off for me. I was not aware at the time that I should be varying my training to keep a good mind-body balance, to avoid injuries. So I did it to myself. I burnt myself out with the dance fitness portion. And that's when I kind of discovered high intensity interval training. And I was like, oh, this is amazing. I can build muscle, I can burn fat. It's a high paced workout. It's half the time with more effort, and became a personal trainer. And that's kind of where I was like, okay, this is where I belong. Like, I like this. And then, that's kind of where it all opened up for that, and was asked to come and help create Strong Nation. Yep. And then I was like, okay, this is it. This is where I belong. So I think that was a big move.
Well, and you, I know you did some OCR stuff, which I'm sure that training also kind of helps you from that perspective as well. Is that something you did just kind of personal, decided to do it on the weekends to start, or how did that even come about?
Okay, so that one's all my husband. He's a runner. Like he is a God-given, like it's just his thing. And the reason I say this is because if you are the kind of person that can say, I think I'm gonna go for a run today. I really like to run. Like you're a runner. Okay. I never ever, even today, I still am not like, man, I'm in the mood to run. I run because I need to run. I enjoy it once I get going, but I'm not like, oh, I think I'll just go hit an easy 7 miles. That's not me.
Yeah.
So he was a runner, and I would always be like, no, you need to do HIIT training. And he would say, let's just run. So it was kind of like a middle ground for us.
Mhm.
One of my bosses actually was like, you guys should try. I'm doing Spartan, like you guys should try it. I know you and Brian would love it. It's so fun. It's not just running, it's like exciting obstacles in the middle. So we did that for our anniversary 1 year together.
Yeah.
And I was like, this is really fun. Like, okay, this is the only way that I could really run. And then we did another one, and I was like, okay, this is really cool. And I loved the mental challenge. So that's one of the things about me. I am the kind of person that just, when I get bored with something, I don't give my best. And I think it's really important for all of us to be honest and own up to like who you really are, not to pretend to be like, okay, but I'm going to be this way. Like you need to own who you are and know what kind of pushes you. And
Yeah.
for me, that's how I am. So OCR was my way of getting out of my comfort zone, pushing myself to things I never thought I could do before. And that's really what made me fall in love with Spartan and obstacle course racing.
Yeah, and I'm sure that you've talked about being kind of authentic to yourself, and I'm assuming because you're a personal trainer, you have people that you have to work with. Is that a piece that you have to work on with a lot of those individuals as you kind of set up your relationship with them? Is that kind of a base for you?
Absolutely. One of the first questions in the very first consultation and in a training session, I tell people like, what excites you? Like, what gets you going? Is it like a really fast-paced workout? Do you like to take your time? Do you like to not have any time to think about it? It's really important to kind of tap into what you like, what you're after, and also even those like no, I don't really like to use the word negative traits, but the things that kind of tend to hold you back. Like
Mhm.
once you know where you fall short, that's when you can kind of dial in, okay, well, maybe you don't always have to change those things, but we can focus more on the stuff that really gets you going so that we can avoid those negative things.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And when you had mentioned before that you kind of you worked really hard for a while and doing kind of that more of a corporate style job, I guess, would have been at that point, and got a little bit burnt out. You have kids, you have this family life and everything too. What are some of the things you do to help kind of balance that, or are you better at it now, I guess, than you used to be?
um,
Yes and no.
Yeah, I mean, I would be lying if I said I had it down because I don't. I mean, it's
Yep.
it's a constant struggle. I feel like it's a lot like just juggling, you're just constantly, and sometimes you're like, okay, whoa, I need to pull back. I will say I did when I realized that my kids are growing up. My kids are now 15 and my oldest will be 17 in November, so he's 16.
Yeah.
And it is just, I'm like, oh my God, like they're going to be grown. I have very few time alone with them. Once they're out there in the world, they're going to be like me, busy, busy, busy. And I'm going to be begging them to come do stuff with me. So, um, yeah, now it's more of like, okay, there's always going to be time for me to make money. I'm going to have the rest of my days, but I'm not going to have the most time with my kids. And that was also a really big factor in me pulling back, as hard as I was working, even with Strong Nation as a master trainer,
Yeah.
just evaluating. 2020 was a really big wake up call for me being in the fitness industry. It was shocking, to
Mhm.
realize, wow, you can be deemed non-essential very quickly. And it's a big, and that's a whole other podcast probably in
Yeah.
itself. But
Yeah.
I really noticed getting to spend that time with them. And so now that I'm kind of entering back into some sort of normalcy, we're really not there yet for my career as a master trainer, but
Yeah.
it's been a big awakening to balance it all out, to spend the time with the family, to make sure we're really connecting and not just seeing each other, and still being able to be successful. It's still a balancing act, but I would definitely say time and experience has made me dial in more to that it goes fast.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And you've mentioned things are starting to get back to a little more normalcy anyway, or whatever that happens to be moving ahead. But when you set kind of goals for yourself moving forward, I mean, obviously you've shifted kind of those goals over time. So how do you approach setting goals for yourself? But then also, is that the same process you would for some of the people who you're maybe training as well? Because that's obviously part of your role as a trainer as well. So how do you approach yourself, and is it similar to what you do for others?
I would say it's similar. I would say with myself, of course, I'm far more brutal and far more, gut wrenching on myself. Because again, there has to be a layer of honesty. And when it comes to achieving goals, you really have to be willing to be honest. And sometimes that honesty is a little scary. You know, um, your goals should always scare you. And I tell my clients that it should make you nervous. It should make you question, like, can I really do this? And stepping in to shoot, like there's no growth in something that's easily in reach. That's ability.
Yeah.
Growth really lies slightly outside of your current grasp. And so yeah, absolutely. For me, I try to find things like what makes me nervous. That's the first thing for me, because I don't want to chase something that's easily obtainable. I need something that makes me have to work to get better at.
Yep.
And the same thing for clients, like, what do you really want? Like finding out what you really want, what's going to excite you, what's going to push you, what scares you a little. And I think those are all components into finding your happiness. And also, but at the same time, what kind of differs is you need to know what is your ideal of happiness. Everyone's is a little different. Some people are really motivated by money. Some people are really motivated by attention or by whatever. I'm not a very motivated by money person. Money's okay. I know I have to have it. So that's a motivator.
Sure.
But at the same time, like, that's not going to be where my happiness lies. Like, my happiness lies in beating myself and disciplining myself. And, that's kind of where I am. And so tapping into what is a client's motivating factor, that's really where, in my opinion, that's where we can really make some ground and help them reach them.
Now, what about those people who are probably listening and thinking, Renee, that's easy for you. You have no problem being in front of an audience, in front of cameras, whatever it happens to be. Maybe first of all, is that true? Like, are you pretty comfortable in that zone? And the other part would be, what do you say to somebody that is maybe a little more hesitant that way too? That even kind of jumping into things is a little bit harder than what they perceive from hearing from you.
Okay, so I would say, and the only my husband is really the best. I hate to divert to him, but he's my best friend. So Brian and I use him for an example because he tends to be a little bit more like cautious of how people, I guess, perceive him. Mm-hmm. I am just the kind of person that I have discovered I would rather up front, like, what you're in for. Like, I always tell there's no layers to me. It's always straight to the bottom, and either you like it or you don't. And I like that because it's okay for you and I to, for anyone to not gel with me or not really like me. But I would rather people just kind of know up front, like, okay, this is how she is. This is where she falls short. This is where, and then so therefore there's no pedestal to fall off of. I'm like right there on the ground level. So yes, I would say I am comfortable, but it's just because I don't fear. Like, I know I'll let people down. Like, I know that I'm not perfect. And so I don't try to shoot for that. So I would say that's the only reason I'm comfortable, because I don't have any expectations. I'm just me, Yeah. And as far as anyone else, I would say, just be who you are. Like, authenticity is the most attractive thing. And it's so scary to believe that. Like, it's one thing to say it and be like, oh yeah, authenticity is so attractive. Like, that's what it is. But then it's also, you're also very vulnerable because there are people that won't like your true self. That's okay. Those people aren't meant for you. Those things aren't meant for you. If you have to change who you are to fit into that, it's not for you. It's for somebody else, and you're just wasting your time. So it's better for you to just kind of like rock who you are. And then that's where that happiness will kind of come, and that fulfillment will come. So you'll achieve your goals if you're on your true path. But if you're on somebody else's path, you're really going to have to dial back and walk back and then go another route. You just waste time. That's my opinion anyway.
Yeah, no, that's good. And I would assume as you've went through this journey with other people, have you found a lot of inspiration from seeing their progress as well? Like, in that area, but also physically and all of those things. Has that been something that, does that drive you, I guess?
Absolutely. Every time that I'm out on a course, like on the Spartan race, is like when you're out there on that course, for me personally, it's like a really personal building time. I think so much. I process so much. When I'm out there on the course, I think about my students. I think about the people that I train. I mean, you just don't know, Jamie. I ask these people to do the craziest stuff. I ask them to do some really hard stuff.
Yeah.
And in our workouts, and they never give up. I mean, and these are not like pro athletes. These are regular people, like everyday people that are working jobs, and moms and dads and brothers and sisters, and they're just normal people. And getting them to do things that they never done before, and they trust me, and they always give their best, and they always do it. So for me, I always think about those people. And when I'm out there and I feel like giving up, I think about a really good friend of mine. She has so many physical limitations and things that could stop her, lots of pain, and she always pushes through. And I just think about those people, and I'm like, man, I can't let that person down. Like, they think that I can do this. These people are cheering for me, and they push every time. Like, I owe it to them to like push myself harder than what I'm capable of. So that definitely motivates me 100%.
Yeah. And as you've went through things, do you have can you think of a mentor or somebody that you've really kind of just looked up to in being able to get to where you are today? Like, is there somebody that stands out personally?
I don't know. I mean, I hate to be honest and say I don't really have any one mentor.
Yeah.
Um, Honestly, it sounds so cheesy, but it's true. My kids, they really, really motivate me. And I admire my kids so much. And every time that I feel like giving up, or every time I feel like stopping in any aspect of life, not just when in a physical workout or a race or anything like that,
Yeah.
just when life gets really freaking tough and I feel like I can't do this anymore. Like, I am so tired of this.
Yeah.
I just think about them, and I know that my boys, I want them to be, pillars of strength, and I want them to always feel that they're capable to take on any task, no matter what's laid upon them. They can do it. They can shoulder it. That really they motivate me. So if I had to say anyone, it would 100% be my kids, and watching them grow into that now, it really inspires me every single day. It really does keep me going. So I would have to say them.
Yeah,
Yeah.
no, and that's a great answer. I mean, you really obviously have some pretty strong resiliency yourself. I mean, you mentioned that, you got married young, you had all those things that you went through personally. Does does the resiliency when you're going through things, does that come from your experiences? Does it come from something that's just innate in you? Where do you think it comes from?
Well, it's not the prettiest thing to say, but I think you like the raw thing. So
Yeah.
I've had a really hard childhood. Like, growing up, I had a really hard life. My family, I mean, just we could not even really scratch the surface, but I've just been through a lot growing up. Broken family. My family, my mom and I have had to go into hiding before when I was young, domestic violence in our home, lots of just anger issues growing up, and lots of things, lots of stuff that I had to really work through and heal through. And for me, I feel like early on, I really thought I was the victim in my life, thanks to a lot of circumstances. And then I just realized that, you take your power back when you really own all those bad things. They really make you. And the harder we look at life, and for some reason we think that we know hard workouts build us into a stronger person, stronger body, healthier body. But we really, for some reason, don't use that same mentality when it comes to life, laying down on you really hard and shouldering all those burdens. But the harder the things that you go through, they really work to build your spirit stronger, in my opinion. So I really just decided to start leaning into it. And that was really the only way for me to kind of take my power back and also heal myself from a lot of the traumas that I kind of went through growing up. Um, and finding that beauty into it, and just stop being the victim, and just kind of taking back your power and realizing like every bad thing that happens to you isn't really bad. It's really just a tool, like that workout in the gym. It's soul crushing, but you're going to come back through it. If you're going through it, it's yours to climb, and you can definitely come through it. You may look like shit when you come through it, and you may be like bloody and feeling like you're going to die, but you still make it through it. And then after you rest a little bit, you come back stronger. So yeah, that's where it comes from.
Yeah, no, and it's interesting when I think anybody who does either at least acknowledge that or get to the point where they've been successful, almost everybody, when you ask that, they've been able to come to grips with the fact that everybody has stuff. It's just your stuff might look different than somebody else's, but at some point knowing that people who are successful in different parts of their life, they've probably got there in similar ways. They've had to deal with things, and then they've built the resilience to get through them when they get to that point. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's important for a lot of people to know, that it's resiliency is a muscle you can build, and a lot of people sometimes don't think of the mental performance stuff is just as important, or sometimes more important. So thank you for that.
Well, and I would really like to say, I think we should, social media is great. I mean, there's so many great things about it. It can be such a great tool to learn, to be inspired, but at the same time, there has to be a balance. Of course, I try to really be positive on social media, but at the same time, it's really important to normalize trauma, because everybody has it.
Yeah.
On social media, we're all trying to put our best face forward, myself included, not so much for some of us maybe, but not so much just for I want you to think I'm awesome, I want you to think I'm great. But we
Yeah.
need to also normalize the fact that these kids, especially my kids, have really taught me this. They look at all these people that they follow on social media, and so when they think that their life is amazing, and then they're like, well, why is my life struggle? I'm like, no, everybody has trauma, everybody has stuff they're working through. They're just not sharing it. And I think if we would normalize talking about what we work through and the bad parts, how they build us into a better person, I think it would be easier for all of us to kind of heal together and still grow through it instead of it pull you back.
Yeah. Kids nowadays have a completely different thing they have to deal with that way, because you do see only the best of only what people want to be able to show, and that's difficult for sure for kids. So, maybe the one thing that we ask every guest as we go through is kind of 2 or 3 tips for somebody, and considering your background, we kind of thought a lot of people are sometimes hesitant about whether it's following a program, going to a gym, whatever those things, especially the first time. And so many people say, I'm not fit, so I can't go, or I can't start this. Well, so maybe just a couple of tips you'd have as to how to approach that problem, and how to maybe move forward from that.
Well, the first thing is you just need to start. I mean, the longer that you procrastinate, you're just losing time, and everything that you do counts. That's another thing. Every single small thing that you do really does add up. It sounds so cliche and it sounds like so insignificant, but really everything you do counts. Dragging yourself up off of the couch when you don't feel like it, and just walking outside. Start small, start realistic too. Have a goal. Keep your goals small. It doesn't need to be like, okay, by March the 1st, I'm going to run a marathon. Some people will say, well, Renee, that's a good goal. Okay. But again, go back to the kind of person you are. Are you barely able to motivate yourself to walk outside of your house? Then that goal's too big. You need to start with a small, attainable goal is number 1. Number 2, you need to be willing to get uncomfortable. whatever that means, not just physically, emotionally. My youngest son had a really big issue with going to the gym because people were going to look at him. And I was like, well, they're going to look at you. And guess what? You're going to look at them too. And they're still here. So be willing to get uncomfortable and be ready for that, and really lean into it. Like, learn to lean into the discomfort, every single aspect of it. And lastly, I would say try everything. Like, try everything. Try things that you do not even think that you would like. And that you'll surprise yourself. I mean, you never know, like those little small steps, like me walking into a Zumba class. I don't even teach Zumba anymore. I just moved past that in my life. It was a stepping stone, but you never know how significant those tiny little stepping stones can really catapult you many years later. But you'll never find out if you don't step into something and just try everything.
Yeah, it's interesting. We asked a similar question of if you know any Thorisdottir, and she said something very similar. Is that so many people worry about whether people are going to look at them when they're in the gym, and she said, the reality is everybody's worried about themselves, and you're so self-absorbed that most people aren't going to spend any attention on somebody else in the gym, or very rarely. So if people are trying to want to follow your journey, follow what you're up to, Renee, what are some of the best ways to do that?
Well, Instagram is where I'm the most active, honestly. I pretty much in tune on there. I do have Facebook, but Instagram is where you're going to see the most interaction from me. So I am on there, Renee Pickett Fit Pro, all one word. I do teach virtual classes as well as in-person classes. I offer online personal training and in person.
Yeah.
And I'm always there if anybody just needs a good kick in the ass and a good boost. Just, I'm always there to try to motivate people as best I can.
Cool. And so what we will do is we'll put that in the show notes. We'll put kind of all of the information about you, and definitely check out some of the videos and everything as well that you have. There's some really cool stuff that people can see online, and you do some really neat boxing stuff sometimes too, which is kind of cool. So in your HIIT stuff. So if you haven't hit subscribe on the podcast, make sure you do that right now. We have great guests every week, just like Renee. And again, I know things are busy. And we were talking about whether or not a little one might come in or something. Well, not so little, I guess, but might pop in. So we didn't have that today. So again, thank you for taking the time. Really appreciate it, Renee.
Thanks for having me. It was awesome. And I really appreciate just, the willingness to chat, and thank you.
No problem. Okay. And we will talk to everybody else again on Big Idea, Big Moves.